Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where we share stories that ignite hope, inspire change, and challenge the way we see the world. Today, we bring you a gripping tale of redemption, justice, and one man's unexpected return to a life he thought he'd left behind. It all begins at a quiet gas station, where a retired Special Forces operative crosses paths with a dangerous biker gang. What unfolds next is a high-stakes battle against crime and an emotional journey of resilience and resolve. Stay with us as we delve into a story that reminds us that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to make a difference. If you love stories packed with suspense, heartfelt lessons, and shocking twists, be sure to comment below, subscribe, and hit that bell so you'll never miss an inspiring tale from Hopeful Horizon. Let us know where you're listening from. We love hearing from you. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the rural gas station in hues of orange and indigo. The faint hum of insects filled the quiet, interrupted occasionally by the metallic click of the station's neon open sign flickering to life. Samuel sat on the curb, his back against the peeling paint of the station's outer wall. His weathered backpack lay by his feet, its frayed edges telling stories of countless miles traveled and nights spent under the stars. Samuel kept his gaze low, avoiding the eyes of passers-by. A mess of unkempt hair framed his lean, lined face, and a beard peppered with silver gave him the appearance of a man who had lived through more storms than most could imagine. His hands rested on his knees, fingers twitching slightly, as though accustomed to action, but unsure what to do with stillness. He had been here before, not this station exactly, but places just like it, quiet spots at the edge of nowhere, where the hum of life passed by without pause. His stomach growled, but he ignored it, his focus fixed on the distant horizon. The calm was broken by the distant growl of motorcycle engines. Samuel's eyes flicked upward for a moment, his brow furrowing, before he dropped his gaze again. The bikers arrived in a cacophony of roaring engines and raucous laughter. 5 of them pulled into the station, their motorcycles gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The leader, a burly man with a shaved head and a leather vest, emblazoned with the name Bull, swung off his bike and surveyed the area with a smug grin. "Looks like we found civilization, boys," Bull said, his voice loud enough to carry across the lot. His gang laughed as they dismounted, their boots thudding heavily against the asphalt. The bikers spread out, making their presence known. One started revving his engine unnecessarily, the noise reverberating through the station. Another kicked over a trash can, sending its contents spilling across the ground. Bull sauntered toward the gas station door, smirking at the terrified cashier inside. Samuel remained still, his head bowed as if he hadn't noticed the commotion. "Hey, check this out," one of the bikers said, pointing at Samuel. Bull turned, his grin widening. Well, well, what do we have here?" Bull walked toward Samuel, his boots crunching against the gravel. "You lost, old man? Or just trying to ruin the view?" The other bikers laughed as they circled closer, their leather jackets creaking with each movement. Samuel didn't respond. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Bull said, crouching down to Samuel's level. "What's in the bag, huh? Got anything good in there?" Samuel's hands tightened briefly on his knees before relaxing. He didn't look up. Bull's grin faltered, irritation creeping into his tone. "Hey, you deaf or something?" One of the bikers, a wiry man with a jagged scar across his cheek, leaned down and snatched Samuel's backpack. He tossed it onto the ground, spilling its contents. An old canteen, a tattered blanket, a dog-eared book, and finally, a small, tarnished medal. Bull's eyes lit up as he picked up the medal, holding it up to the light. "What's this, hero?" he sneered. "You win this in some Boy Scout camp? Or maybe you stole it?" The gang roared with laughter, but Samuel remained silent, his eyes fixed on the medal in Bull's hand. Bull leaned closer, his grin turning menacing. "Let's see if you can fight without your army." The laughter grew louder as the bikers closed in, their shadows stretching long under the station lights. Samuel slowly stood, his lean frame unfolding like a coiled spring. The air seemed to grow heavier as Samuel rose to his feet, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He dusted off his worn jacket, his eyes never leaving the medal in Bull's hand. "You don't want to do this," Samuel said softly, his voice low but steady. The bikers froze for a moment, caught off guard by the unexpected confidence in his tone. Then Bull laughed, a harsh, guttural sound. "Oh, I think we do." Bull stepped forward, shoving Samuel hard enough to make him stumble back. Samuel regained his balance with surprising ease, his eyes narrowing. "Last warning," Samuel said, his voice still calm. "Or what?" Bull taunted. "You gonna bore us to death?" One of the bikers, emboldened by Bull's mockery, lunged at Samuel. In an instant, Samuel moved. His hands shot out, gripping the biker's wrist and twisting it with practiced precision. A sharp cry of pain echoed as the biker dropped to his knees, clutching his arm. The other bikers stared, stunned. "What the hell?" Bull growled. "Get him!" The wiry biker with the scar rushed at Samuel, a metal chain swinging in his hand. Samuel sidestepped smoothly, grabbing a nearby trash can lid. He deflected the chain with a clang and spun, using the lid to strike the biker in the side. The man crumpled to the ground, wheezing. Samuel turned to face the remaining three, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. "You should leave," Samuel said, his voice carrying an edge now. Bull snarled, pulling a knife from his belt. "You think you're tough, old man? Let's see how tough you are with this." Samuel's expression didn't change. He scanned the area, his mind working quickly. Spotting a mop leaning against the gas station wall, he moved toward it with deliberate steps. The cashier inside watched in shock, her hands trembling as she fumbled for the phone. Bull lunged, the knife glinting under the lights. Samuel dodged, grabbing the mop and using the handle to block the attack. With a swift motion, he swept Bull's legs out from under him, sending the leader crashing to the ground. The remaining bikers hesitated, their confidence shaken. "You should listen to him," a voice called out. Everyone turned as the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. A police car pulled into the station, its lights flashing. Two officers stepped out, their hands resting on their holstered weapons. The older officer, a grizzled man with a stern expression, froze when he saw Samuel. Recognition flashed in his eyes. "Captain?" he said, disbelief coloring his voice. Samuel sighed, lowering the mop. "It's just Samuel now," he replied. The bikers exchanged confused glances as the officers approached. "You've got some explaining to do," the younger officer said, glancing at the downed bikers. Bull glared at Samuel, his face red with humiliation. "This isn't over," he growled. Samuel didn't respond. He simply picked up his belongings, including the medal, and began packing them into his bag. As the officers cuffed the bikers and began loading them into the squad car, the older officer turned to Samuel. "You've been gone a long time," he said quietly. Samuel slung his backpack over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. "Not long enough." With that, he walked away, the faint sound of sirens fading into the night. The squad car's engine hummed softly, the flashing red and blue lights bathing the gas station in an eerie glow. Samuel sat on the curb, his hands resting on his knees, his expression as impassive as stone. The officers stood nearby, talking in hushed tones, but it was clear that their attention kept straying back to him. Officer Reynolds, the older of the two, finally broke the silence. "Captain Samuel Prescott, never thought I'd see you again." Samuel didn't look up. "It's just Samuel now. Been a long time, Reynolds." The younger officer, a rookie named Martinez, looked between them, his curiosity barely contained. "You know this guy?" he asked. Reynolds nodded, his face clouded with a mix of respect and sadness. "Know him. He's a legend. Special Forces. The stories about him are the stuff of folklore in the service. But one day he just vanished." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Vanished?" Samuel finally spoke, his voice low and tired. "Didn't vanish. Just walked away." Reynolds turned to Samuel, his gaze sharp. "You didn't just walk away, Captain. You disappeared after that mission in Kandahar. Word was you were carrying more scars than just the physical kind." Samuel's jaw tightened, and his hands curled into fists for a brief moment. "You don't know what you're talking about, Reynolds," he said quietly. Reynolds studied him for a long moment, but didn't push. Instead, he turned his attention to the bikers now cuffed and sitting on the ground. Bull, still nursing a bruised ego and a busted lip, was glaring daggers at Samuel. "You don't know who you're messing with, old man," Bull snarled. Samuel didn't respond, but Reynolds stepped forward. "Oh, I think we've got a pretty good idea. Why don't you tell us what's so important in those saddlebags?" Bull froze, his bravado faltering for a split second. "Ain't nothing in there but personal stuff." Reynolds exchanged a glance with Martinez. "Right, personal stuff." He gestured to Martinez. "Search the bikes." Bull's protests turned into a string of curses as Martinez began checking the saddlebags. The other bikers shifted uneasily, their earlier confidence evaporating. "Got something," Martinez called out, holding up a bundle wrapped in a greasy cloth. Reynolds unwrapped it, revealing a collection of small, unmarked firearms and what appeared to be stolen jewelry. "Well, well," Reynolds said, his tone laced with sarcasm. "Looks like your personal stuff includes illegal weapons and stolen goods. Care to explain?" Bull spat on the ground. "You wouldn't understand." Samuel watched the exchange silently, his mind already working. The weapons were too clean, too precise to be standard fare for a gang like this. They were clearly part of something bigger. "You're running for someone else," Samuel said, breaking his silence. Bull looked at him sharply, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Who are you working for?" Reynolds demanded. Bull didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. Reynolds turned to Samuel, a knowing look in his eyes. "You see what we're dealing with here. We could use your help." Samuel stood, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "Not my problem," he said flatly. "You can't just walk away from this," Reynolds argued. "You know how this works. These guys are just the bottom of the ladder. If we don't stop this now, it's only going to get worse." Samuel hesitated, his expression hardening. "I walked away from that life for a reason, Reynolds." "Yeah, and now it's staring you in the face," Reynolds shot back. "You're the only one here who can handle this. These guys aren't going to stop unless someone makes them." For a long moment, Samuel said nothing. Then he sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. "Fine," he muttered. "But this is the last time. Don't make me regret it." Reynolds nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. "You won't." The warehouse sat on the outskirts of town, its corrugated metal walls rusting and pockmarked from years of neglect. Inside, the faint hum of machinery mixed with the low murmur of voices. Crates were stacked haphazardly, their contents hidden beneath tarps. Samuel stood in the shadows outside, his keen eyes scanning the scene. He was dressed in simple, dark clothing, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Behind him, Reynolds and Martinez waited, their weapons holstered, but ready. "You sure about this?" Martinez whispered. Samuel didn't respond immediately. Instead, he pointed to a section of the warehouse where two men were unloading crates from a truck. "That's your entry point," he said. "Reynolds, you take the south side. Martinez, cover the back. I'll handle the front." "Handle the front?" Reynolds repeated, frowning. "You're going in alone?" Samuel gave him a pointed look. "Do you have a better idea?" Reynolds sighed. "Just be careful." Samuel smirked faintly. "I always am." With that, he slipped into the shadows, his movements silent and precise. He reached the warehouse door and peered inside. The bikers were clustered around a table, going over what appeared to be an inventory list. Bull was at the center, barking orders. Samuel moved quickly, disabling the first two guards without a sound. He used his surroundings to his advantage, knocking one man out with a piece of pipe and another with a well-placed punch. Inside, the operation continued, oblivious to Samuel's presence. Reynolds and Martinez moved into position, their radios crackling softly as they coordinated their approach. "On your signal," Reynolds whispered. Samuel stepped into the light, his presence finally drawing the attention of the gang. "You again?" Bull growled, his face twisting with anger. "Yeah," Samuel said, his voice calm. "Me again." Bull lunged at him, but Samuel sidestepped effortlessly, using the man's momentum against him. Within moments, Bull was on the ground, gasping for air. The remaining bikers hesitated, their confidence shaken by Samuel's display of skill. "This is over," Samuel said, his voice firm. "Walk away, and you might get to see another sunrise." Reynolds and Martinez chose that moment to make their entrance, their weapons drawn. The bikers froze, their hands slowly rising in surrender. The operation ended as quickly as it had begun. The bikers were cuffed and loaded into squad cars, their smuggling ring dismantled. As the sun began to rise, Reynolds approached Samuel. "You did good tonight," he said. Samuel shook his head. "Just did what needed to be done." "You could come back, Reynolds said. "We could use someone like you." Samuel smiled faintly. "Not yet, maybe someday." He turned and walked away, his silhouette fading into the morning light. The gas station owner later found a folded $20 bill on the counter, along with a note that read, "Thanks for the coffee. Keep the station safe." And just like that, Samuel was gone again, leaving behind a world slightly better than he'd found it. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey of courage, redemption, and justice. Samuel's story reminds us that even when life pulls us away from the path we thought we'd follow, the opportunity to stand up and make a difference is always there. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know where you're listening from. Be sure to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss another powerful story from Hopeful Horizon. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay strong, and never underestimate the impact one person can have.